A guten Erev Shabbos. There are two Shabbos Bereishis drushes this week, the one we want and the one we have. Let's start with the one we want, the Shabbat Bereshit talk that we would like to have. It goes like this. This Shabbos is a very special Shabbos. It's Shabbat Bereshit, the Shabbat of beginnings, of new beginnings. We start from the start, we begin from the beginning with chapter 1, verse 1 of Genesis. It's all of great life-giving significance. As we conduct ourselves on Shabbat Bereshit, so goes the whole year. So with joy and anticipation, I hope you'll come on Shabbos morning, and you'll see when they lift up the Torah, the extra large letter Bet at the beginning, with which we begin the story of creation. Bet is for Bayit, a house, because we are home in this world, and we can make it a home for God. That's one view of why God created this world. He desired, so to speak, a dwelling place in the most physical realm, a place where it would truly be our free choice to welcome God in. Shabbos Bereishis is the culmination of the joy of Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, which themselves are the seal and finale of the entire high holiday season, reaching all the way back to Rosh Chodesh Elul, which was a few days shy of 2 months ago. Through all the month of Elul and the Shofar, the week of getting up early to say Selichos, and Rosh Hashanah, the 10 days of repentance, Erev Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, Sukkot, and Simchas Torah, all these emotions and experiences and feelings and togetherness and tears and dancing brings us to this moment, to the Shabbat of the new beginning of Bereishit, which we began reading last Sunday and we lived with all week, and now we're recounting the wonders of creation and the possibility of beginning anew. The joy of Simchas Torah is in the completion of Devarim, of Deuteronomy, and in the completion of our annual Torah reading, but at least as much, if not more, in the new beginning. One opinion says that the Shehecheyanu that we say on Simchas Torah is for the newness of the Torah. It's the same Torah scroll we read from last year and the year before that. We are renewed, having gone through Rosh Hashanah in which the world is renewed. We're renewed with it, and of course our connection to Torah and to Yiddishkeit is renewed. So with joy we said a Shehecheyanu, we danced with the Torah, and we read the end and immediately started over at the beginning. Let me share an observation with you. We were fortunate last year to acquire a new Sefer Torah, thanks to the generosity of some donors. The small Sefer Torah, which is about half the size and weight of a regular Sefer. To be honest, the intention was, may no one know from any such suffering, that when we had a minyan for Shiva, we would have a Sefer Torah that's easier to transport and store. That was the intention. And what was the unintended result? It happens that this Sefer Torah is so much lighter that some of our KSTers who were here on Simchas Torah and were not comfortable holding a full-sized Sefer Torah in years past were able to dance hakafas carrying and holding and embracing this small Sefer Torah, which they had not been able to do previously. By the way, if you think I'm only talking about our older members, those over 40, I'm also talking about our up-and-coming generation, the pre-B'nai Mitzvah people. The young ones were also able to carry and hug and dance with the Torah. A few people seemed anxious that we were giving the Torah to a kid. The answer to that is, what do we have Torah for, if not to pass it along to our kids and enable them to carry it forward? Seems to me like that's what we're here for. And let me emphasize as a side note that the smaller Sefer Torah has every single letter in it that the large Sefer Torah has. We have not, God forbid, left out or edited anything. Not one letter is missing. It's all there. The way to help more people embrace the Torah is not, God forbid, by editing it or taking out pages or modernizing it, just to find one that fits in their arms. There is one that fits all of us, I promise you. Okay, so dancing with the Torah and beginning anew and bringing all of Tishrei to a conclusion and blessing the new month of Cheshvan, which we will do this Shabbat morning, All this is the meaning and the content of Shabbos Bereishis. And if we carry ourselves right, it can be a good omen for the entire year, a siman tov for a shana tova. That's the Shabbos Bereishis drasha we ought to have. And then there's the one that we do have. Parshas Bereishis talks about the creation of heaven and earth, and everything that fills the land and the seas, and the creation of humankind, Adam and Chava, and their children. And the first incident that involves their progeny, Adam and Eve's children born of flesh, is murder. Murder, the wanton and senseless taking of the life of another. Cain sees that his brother Abel's offering seems somehow more pleasing than his, and he murders his brother. That's how human history begins, with killing, with murder, spilling the blood of another. The blood of your brother, by the way. That's what we read this week. And last week, when we began reading it, we woke up Shabbos morning to learn that the blood of our brothers was being spilled wantonly and brutally, a pogrom in our homeland, a nightmare, a horror. Any words that we can use to describe it don't even come close and even mock the enormity of the bloodshed and the bestial nature of the murders and the butchering of children. What is there to talk about? What can we say? Maybe we do have to talk about it because to remain silent may be worse. Many of our friends, or those who thought were our friends, are silent, and it's deafening. I have a rationalist tendency to compare and to do it with numbers. You see, just like we all have a spark of Moshe Rabbeinu in us and a spark of the patriarchs and matriarchs, we all have a bit of an accountant inside of us too, and we want to see the balance sheet. Was this as bad as 9/11? Proportionately, that was a fraction of this. How many Jews were murdered in Kristallnacht, the pogrom throughout Germany in 1938? 91. How many of us were slaughtered in the Kishinev pogrom 100 years ago? 49. You have to go back a ways in history to find a pogrom where our enemies murdered and butchered as many of us as last Shabbos. I stopped myself from looking. I don't want to know. The staggering loss of life, the way in which the infiltration into Israel took place, and the gleeful murder of Jews, the joy and pride that they take in death and causing death could not be in more stark contrast to the joy that we take in life. It used to be that criminals would try to hide or deny their crimes. Now they post them on the internet so everyone can see. That's how far humankind has advanced. It's not going to be until next week that we learn God's words to Noah. Umiyad ha'adam miyad ish achiv edrosh es nefesh ha'adam. The blood of your souls I will demand, God says to man. Every person, for that of his brother I will demand the soul. Whoever sheds the blood of another, by another shall his blood be shed. For people are made in the image of God. And still later we have to wait until Parshas Yisro, a couple months down the road, to hear the top 10 list of commandments that we have posted here in the shul for easy reference. Lo sirtzach, do not murder. Maybe we should have known without being told, but maybe not, because we see that Cain has this impulse to kill, and there's nothing to hold him back, so he murders his brother out of anger. The commentaries try to go soft on him, explain that later he did teshuvah. He carried the mark of Cain his entire life. He realized and regretted what he had done, spent the rest of his life trying to raise his children to be productive members of society, building a world, not destroying it. If you go to Auschwitz, which I'm not endorsing or suggesting you should, You will see words from this week's Parsha inscribed on the wall in one of the barracks, which is now a place for reflection and prayer. The words on the wall say, Kol dmei achicha tzoyakim elai min ha'adama. The bloods of your brother cry out to me from the earth, God says to Cain, after he denies murdering his brother. What bloods? Why bloods in the plural? Very deliberately. Because Cain killed Hevel, and he also, in that process, killed the descendants that now Hevel would never have. This is the converse of what we say from the Mishnah Sanhedrin, Kol hamakayim nefesh achas, one who preserves a single soul. Ma'alav hakasuv ki'ilu kiyem olam male. It's considered as if he saved an entire world. One of the Torah tours kids told me last week, any fool can count the seeds in an apple, but only God knows how many apples in a seed. Only God knows how many murders are committed, how many bloods are spilled with each murder. The incredible, in every sense of the word, reckless destruction of human life demonstrates the truth of what we said when we were dancing with the Torahs on Saturday night and Sunday. We said, Baruch Elokeinu shebranu lichvodo hu hivdi lanu min hatoyim v'nasan lanu es Torahs emes. Blessed is God who created us to honor Him, and hivdi lanu min hatoyim. He separated us from those who get it wrong. He gave us the Torah of truth, which says that life, every life, especially the life of a child, is infinitely precious. We know, because we know the Torah of truth, that we cannot murder. The impulse may be there, but our strength and our humanity comes in checking our worst impulses, not giving in to them. That's what being a human being is, to check your worst impulses and to let the good be your guide. Mandela said in a speech at Kings Park Stadium in 1990, great anger and violence can never build a nation. It's little comfort to us that these people are slowly going to have to learn that they cannot build their nation on hatred of us or anyone. And if they want to truly be a nation, they'll have to live by another dictum of Mandela's. To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. That's how you build a nation. Okay, enough about them and their mistaken and horrible ways, which are costing us a lot of blood, because they're slow to learn and their leaders remain willfully ignorant of these truths. We're now left with piecing together this Shabbos Bereishis, which is a new beginning for us, hopefully a new beginning of better times. Maybe our motto for this week should be Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. Who is like your nation Israel? Who would endure what we endured this week and not become bloodthirsty themselves? Who would restrain their worst instincts and instead pray for peace, call down blessings on the captives and the wounded and the bereaved, and send plane loads of clean socks and energy bars and sweaters so that those who guard and protect our people will know that we care about them and love them and appreciate them. I have a feeling that we missed a great opportunity last year. Last year was a Hakel year, the year following a Shemitah year. According to Parshas Vayelech, which we just read a few weeks ago, the entire Jewish people should have gathered together in Hakel, gathered together in Yerushalayim after Sukkot, to be together, to hear the king read the Torah. Okay, at the moment we don't have a king, we don't have a temple, but we know which years are the Shemitah years, the sabbatical years, so we know which years are the Hakel years, to gather together. It was a year to bask in the closeness and togetherness and unity of the Jewish people. We should have had our arms around each other and been holding hands and singing all last year. I regret having mentioned it only once in the course of all year. I could have done better. There's a special bracha, special power or ability the Jewish people have, but especially in a year like last year, for closeness and togetherness. Did we use it to maximum benefit? I think history will reflect that the outstanding feature of last year, 5,783, was not unity and togetherness. In fact, we used a lot of last year to choose up sides and argue with each other to our sorrow. So now on this Shabbos Bereishis, in fact, for the entire week, really since last Shabbos morning until this moment, the Jewish people have been united in a way that's hard to recall over the last 50 years or maybe longer. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. Who is like your nation Israel? 10 or 15 or 20,000 of us gathered in Mel Lastman Square to sing together Oseh Shalom Bimromav. And that wasn't the only rally in town this week. Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, will gather together at Sharei Shamayim to learn Torah together, to pray together. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. Who is like your nation Israel? Maybe this Shabbos Bereishis will be the beginning of a new year of closeness among all of us, of redeeming the Hakel year which I feel we squandered. A second chance to embrace each other, to hold hands, to show our love and care for each other. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. Who is like your nation Israel? Someone said this week that they felt like doubling down on their Judaism, doing more, adding more, which I believe is exactly the right sentiment. We can all do more, and this week was proof of our limitless capacity for goodness and kindness towards each other, which until this week, perhaps we would not even have believed. The city of Toronto, Jewish community of Toronto, raised some $30 million this week to send to Israel to help. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. Who is like your nation Israel? On Tuesday night at Or Chaim, we heard a story about restaurants in Tel Aviv that are going kosher. They wanted to be able to serve food to the soldiers, and since the Israeli army is kosher, they had to kasher their kitchens to be able to serve the soldiers, which is tremendous. Imagine the lesson from this. People look inside themselves and say, what can I change about myself so that I can better help others? Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. And as this war unfolds and the wounded are cared for and calm is restored, we will hear many more stories of Jews helping one another, reaching out to one another, treating each other like brothers and sisters. You're going to hear more heroic stories from this week. You'll hear about Noam Tibon, a retired general who drove across Israel to rescue his grandchildren, and other retired commanders who sprang into action. Someone showed a photo of a 95-year-old reservist who puts on a uniform and shows up for Miluim to protect his people and inspire others. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. My friend and colleague in Boston told me about a need to find emergency housing and shelter for 6,000 evacuees. That need was filled in 45 minutes by people opening up their homes and their spare beds and their sofas. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. You'll hear about Rachel Adari, who when the terrorists crashed into her home, she served them cookies and drinks while her kids escaped and brought the police to rescue them. She knew that these attackers were probably hungry and missing their mothers, and she knew that a hungry man is more dangerous than a man who's just eaten. So she fed them until the rescuers arrived. Umi ka'amcha Yisrael. We should hope and pray and trust that the good that we make happen out of all this misery and suffering, that God gives us the wisdom and the strength to preserve the trust and kindness among all of us and to keep building a better and stronger and closer Jewish people, which someday we hope and trust and pray will inspire the rest of the world to treat each other like children of one Father, Avinu Shebashamayim. Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov.